Hello, everybody.
So,
Hold on a second. I apologize. I've lost power over here. Damn it. Yeah, that's a hell of a start, right? Here we go.
oh, yeah.
We are on, I think, our fifth video.
Yeah. This is chapter 3.
And we're in chapter 3.
The start of chapter.
I will note, so that you are not confused, he does not number his chapters.
Oh, I guess he doesn't.
Nope, he doesn't.
Big Thoughts. That's the chapter we're on.
Yep. It's the third chapter. Just so you know, Jed, you have Maya. I have Saturn. Black and white dog. I have a black and white cat. Very spiritual cat. Very much a Baron Samedi cat about death. He knows death and he's not afraid of it. He's a guardian. So, first chapter, Sarah. One thing I like to always point out in the Sarah chapter is that it's about a new person coming in to the spiritual game. And he's laying it out. Does a little poem called The Paradox. And now he's going to talk to someone. What's his name? Martin. And the frame for Martin is Martin's been studying for years.
Yeah.
So he's taking his material, applying it to a new person, one, and now how he's going to apply it to someone who's been practiced a long time. Right?
Yeah, and
as to get out, sorry.
As a first chapter, it makes sense to have the Sarah archetype, the young person who's like looking, because it's going to be that's the best for an intro for potential new people who are going to read the book. But then he does smart in that it's the third, but the next person is what probably is going to be the majority of people who would pick up this book.
Who knows? Yeah.
Which would be someone who has many years of spiritual seeking experience.
And one of the reasons that Jed chose Sarah and the newcomer as the first chapter was because he's also saying to you, to me, to you, you're the newcomer.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a good point.
To my way of thinking, I don't care how long you've been a fucking spiritual cushion sitter.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's exactly
He
right.
was very deliberate in choosing a new approach. Okay, we're going to start right off and get right into it. And Asher's going to open up by reading. And one of the cool things, I don't know if we've mentioned this. Have we mentioned it before? That he does quotes at the beginning, I think we have, of every chapter. And the quotes are very relevant. They're cool. Like he spent some serious time studying these quotes over the years.
Yeah, you can tell they're not just. He didn't just think like, oh, I gotta find something to put in the beginning. So he just like searched up popular quotes or anything. They're all clearly sourced from him, I think, because they're wide.
Yeah, they're all over the place and they're very relevant to the chapter. So let's start by reading it.
Okay, so this is the third chapter in the book called Big Thoughts. To meet my thousand faces, I roam the world, the dirtiest grass. Where's the sunlight of my skin? I stand in this stream, myself, and laugh. Rumi.
What does that mean?
It's very esoteric, but I don't know. I feel like when I read Rumi, I just get like the same feeling, but I couldn't pinpoint. I mean, I guess it's just like the contented happiness. That's usually what I get from Rumi.
Okay. Sounds good.
I don't know. To meet my thousand faces, I roam the world, the dirtiest grass. The line, the dirtiest grass, where's the sunlight of my skin? No, I just, it's esoteric. I'm just going to say that I would love to hear interpretations or whatever, but that one's pretty vague to me. Okay. Legally, I am the owner of the house. It's a stately and ornate gentleman's farmer's house with plenty of room, built in 1912. The story goes that two well-to-do gents had eyes for the same dame, so they each built the nicest house they could. They both proposed to her, assuming that she'd go for the one with the best house. I first heard the story in my lawyer's office at the closing. His secretary was fully versed in my house's history. I waited anxiously to know how it turned out, whether my house won. It did. Sportingly, the other house burned down a few years later. Good story. If it was made up or amended, I don't want to know. I like it just the way it is. The house is in east central Iowa, about 20 miles from Iowa City, and half an hour from the Mississippi River. We're lucky that there's some nice roll to the land here, but not completely flat like parts of Iowa can be. We have a few wooded acres and a dozen unwooded acres, a creek, a small pond, and we're surrounded by farmland on all sides. An island in a sea of corn. The house has wrapping porches, sweeping eaves, and numerous decorative features for which I don't know the correct terminology. The inside is full of built-in cabinets with glass front shelving, oak floors, ceiling beams, and the kind of detailed craftsmanship that people say you can't find anymore. Anyway, it's an admirable old house, and I haven't seen its like during my years in Iowa. That's not to say it's the biggest or the best or anything like that, just that it's unique and special. Most importantly, it's quiet. The nearest neighborhood is more than a mile away, and the nearest paved road is 5 miles away, well out of earshot and eyeshot. I say I'm the legal owner to make a distinction that I nevertheless feel like a guest in the house. A royal guest, but a guest nonetheless. It's Sanea's house, and it has been since the first day she entered it. She runs it from top to bottom. She manages the food, maintenance, cleaning, and money. She keeps the guests in line. If it weren't for Sanea, the place would probably have devolved into the condition of a ratty frat house years ago. It's morning now. I'm sitting in my TV room watching world news. I enjoy watching. I'm an observer more than a participant. TV, movies, books, news shows. I don't take sides or have any concern for outcomes. It's the drama I enjoy. I don't watch sports or soap operas because that's basically what news seems like to me. Today's crop of zany soap opera antics. Martin roams in and takes the other seat. He's not here to watch the news. There's another TV in the remodeled basement for the guests to use. Mine is on the second floor and is much more comfortably appointed than the one downstairs. They both get satellite, and the basement isn't exactly a dungeon, but my upstairs room is, thanks to Sanea, more like one of those home theaters the rich folk have. There are only 2 chairs, matching overstuffed recliners, and double thickness drapes to block the light. There's a big screen TV, a VCR, a DVD player, a game console, and surround sound system, and all the electronic bric-a-brac to run it all. Really, a great room, and no doubt unusual for an Iowa farmhouse. It's generally understood that anyone can come in when the door is open and take a seat in the other chair if it's vacant. Whether or not I feel like talking is another matter and depends largely on whether or not I feel like talking. An interesting news item on Taiwanese independence ends, and I surf through the news channels for something else of interest. There's a lot of financial news at this time of day. I don't care for financial news, or any news really, unless something big is happening. Nothing big is happening. I check the weather channel for typhoons, tornadoes, hurricanes, or flooding, but everything is calm. Oh well. You're wearing shoes, I say to Martin. Oh geez, he mutters and takes off his sandals. He slips them behind the chair so Sanea won't see them if she looks in, but Sanea sees everything, and Martin knows it. I may be the great enlightened guy they all come to see, but Sanea is the all-seeing, all-knowing mistress of the manor, and even I am just another dull-witted child in her presence. I'm looking at the TV, and Martin is looking at me. He wants to talk. I suppose I should respond negatively to his attempts to finesse me. I suppose I should respond negatively to his attempts to finesse me, but there's nothing on TV, and Martin can be interesting at times. I give him a mildly exasperated nod, and he accepts. I've made a lot of progress on the assignment you gave me, he spurts enthusiastically. I balk at the word assignment, but it's actually fairly accurate, so I say nothing. Remind me, I say, although I need no reminding. Martin has spent more than 2 decades in the thrall of one of the West's better-known spiritual leaders, and has come away with a head full of pseudo-Hindu gibberish as fiendishly entangled as the Gordian knot. I have been trying to ease him toward the Alexandrian solution of slicing cleanly through the knot in a single stroke rather than wasting further decades trying to untangle it, but Martin is slow in letting go of his belief system and the allegiances that came with it. Last time we met, Martin brought a book and read to me several dozen stanzas from the teachings of his former guru. The words were obviously those of a vast mind expounding upon timeless mysteries, and I could easily understand why seekers would flock to one of such limitless insight. But when Martin finished reading, I had absolutely no idea what had just been said. More importantly, although he thought otherwise, neither did Martin. To illuminate this point for him, the assignment I gave Martin was to reduce the selection he'd shared with me down to a single coherent concept, one lucid sentence. The idea for this assignment came to me as I listened to Martin read his former guru's baffling words with shimmering enthusiasm.
Can we stop?
Yeah.
That's something that it's become very useful to me, both as a teacher of anything, is to reduce it down. What are you getting out of it in this moment? And I've had students and myself where I'll just ramble on, and I just wanted to say, Martin's a kind of a stubborn case here, but that's a really good tool in life. Just a human developmental piece is to be able to get clear, kind of like where he says, where are you at right now? Where are you coming from? Where are you going? Like, where are you at? Let's get clear. Reduce it all down. And the way we do it is we say, what's your biggest takeaway? What's the thing that your biggest takeaway? I know you got the best way. You know why I like saying biggest takeaway? Because it allows you that you have other takeaways.
Yes.
It mentally says to you, oh, I've got 20 takeaways, but what's my biggest? And then you never ask what's your second biggest takeaway is.
Yeah, no, you just say what's your biggest, because then, right, it allows you to discount other things, but the beauty of it is that in that allowance of discounting other things, you actually kind of do a more full spectrum comprehension when you just have to break it down into one thing. And,
So if you take nothing but that from all of the hours that we talk, I think you will be much better off. The ability to concisely reduce things into very specific, coherent meanings for yourself. Go.
I think it was on this one. To illuminate this point for him, the assignment I gave Martin was to reduce the selection he'd shared with me down to a single coherent concept, one lucid sentence. The idea for this assignment came to me as I listened to Martin read his former guru's baffling words with shimmering enthusiasm. I was struck by the exalted sage's ability to mix a few simple concepts together in such a way as to sound sublimely profound without actually saying a whole lot. The passages Martin read to me had to do with the tripartite of perceiver, active perception, and object perceived, the three gunas of Hinduism, the benefits of silencing the mind, and something about ascending levels of consciousness, each more wonderful than the last. There was probably some overlighting theme that tied them all together in a unified whole that made Martin shimmer. But what that overlighting theme might have been, I can't say, because that would have entailed listening much more closely than I actually did. It was clear to me that Martin was trying to display his mastery over some big thoughts. He also seemed to think that he was educating me, or perhaps acting as self-appointed ambassador to me from his previous teacher. But like I said, I don't know, because I lost track of what he read pretty near the beginning. All I ever really need from a student at the start of a conversation is a flare, a simple locator beacon. The student is traveling from wherever they are at the moment toward the state of abiding non-dual awareness. That journey is what I help them with because I am positioned high above with a clear view of the entire terrain. I always know where the destination is, but I need the student to send up a signal to show me their current position. I just need to get a lock-in on their location, and I usually have it within the first few words or sentences they utter. For instance, I see where Martin is, and I can see that he has himself twisted up in some brambles. He may feel an urge to describe his current position to me in exhaustive detail, but I already know all I need to guide him out. Martin may want to spend the next 20 years studying the local flora, but I will encourage him to pull out a machete and hack his way out and continue his journey. Sitting next to me now, Martin reminds me about the passages he read to me and my request that he boil it down. I nod and ask what he has come up with. Martin's interpretation of the text and its value was off the mark in the first place, but this little exercise was not really about clarifying the text for him anyway. Rather, it was about coaxing him towards doing his own thinking instead of parroting wisdom-esque concepts and abdicating responsibility for himself to any non-Martin authority.
which is a theme of everything Jed will teach.
Yeah.
So we'll be saying that a lot through these books.
In the course of this process, Martin will probably develop a deeper insight into the knowledge he was twirling and spinning like a fancy six-shooter, but that isn't the point. And like I said, Martin can be a pretty interesting guy. He's in his mid-40s and he's been to a lot of exotic places and done a lot of interesting things. He's a very large man at around 6.5 feet tall and nearly 300 pounds. He's an expert body worker and not a bad cook when Sanea gives up the kitchen for a meal. He's all or part Native American, played college ball for Northwestern, was a Green Beret for 6 years, and a spiritual renunciate for 10. Overall, he's an impressive and likable fellow. He's been in the house for a few months and is generally able to grasp the things he's supposed to and move on. I've known he was stuck on this outside authority thing since he first arrived, but I had never poked at it directly. The last thing I wanted to do was to get in a pissing contest about who had the cooler knowledge, his former teacher being a whole different order of magnitude in the guru hierarchy from yours truly, meaning that if I wasn't careful, I might accidentally send Martin back to the guy who takes 1,200 words and 15 references to ancient texts in 3 languages to say, "What's up?" What Martin came up with for his assignment, I realized within a few seconds, was basically nothing more than a simplified rewording of the original text. He was explaining it, not clarifying it or reducing it. "Stop," I say. He stops. "You're just using different words to say the same thing." "Well, yeah," he agrees, "but I'm using less words and explaining it in more Western terms." I flip through the channels and stop to watch Samantha trying to cool an irate Larry Tate. "Why do you think I asked you to summarize the passages you were reading to me, Martin?" I thought that you were interested in it and might be having trouble, following it," he says. Larry has stormed out, and now Samantha is calling Dr. Bombay, a sure sign that something's amiss, possibly of Dr. Bombay's doing. He probably turned Darren into a polo pony, and now Larry needs Darren to pitch the big client. I don't understand. This is all references to TV shows I just haven't fucking seen.
Bewitched. It's a show from the 70s. It dates Jed.
Dr. Bombay, however, cannot be reached because he's someplace exotic riding Darren to victory in the final shakar of the big match. I'm just guessing, of course, but it can't be easy being Darren. Jesus Christ, I just don't know what the fuck he's talking about. Yes, I was having some trouble with it, Martin.
I got that.
I sure was. Now let's try this again. What I'd like you to do is to boil this whole complex ganglion of guru speak down to a single lucid concept. Summarize it. Hack away at it until you reach the core. Reduce it like an algebraic equation. Burn away all the excess and see what's left. "Well," Martin begins, and I immediately know we're banging our heads up against his dogged reliance on outside authority. "I think that what he means is..." I interrupt. "What does it matter what he means, Martin?" He stares at me with his mouth slightly open. "It's your head on the block, Martin. It's your clock that's ticking." I try a different approach. "What's your mission statement, Martin? What's the point? What is it you hope to accomplish with your life?" "Freedom from bondage," he replies without hesitation. "Liberation. Oneness with all that is. Unity consciousness." I manage not to hurl myself out the window. Okay, that's quite a list. Or do you figure those are all different ways of saying the same thing?" "Well, yes," he replies, clearly wondering if I'm an imposter. "Those are all different ways of saying enlightenment." "Really? How do you know?" "Well, I've spent over 25 years. "What, Martin? You've spent 25 years doing what?" "Everything. Studying, meditating, purifying myself, reading, attending lectures, learning everything I could about evolving spiritually." It occurs to me that this is exactly where Sarah's current heading will take her. 25 years of unfulfilled searching, all for want of a little straight talk. "What if you were to find out that it was all a waste?" I ask him. He recoils, and I sense that he's on the verge of getting up and walking out. "Bear with me, Martin. We're just talking. Just hypothetically. What if you found out that in order to achieve the enlightenment you speak of, you had to reject all the teaching you've ever received? Could you abandon all this knowledge you've acquired?" "Well, I don't really think..." "What's your priority? Enlightenment or the knowledge?" "I don't think..." "How long has your guru been teaching?" "Well, over 30 years. And how many of his students have achieved enlightenment?" "Well, that you know of personally. Well, I never, that you've heard of. It's not that there were rumors of. I don't think, what is it they're doing, Martin? The recipe for enlightenment they're promoting, what is it? Well, meditation and knowledge, basically. And in 30 years, they've never held someone up and said, look at this guy. He's enlightened and we got him there. In 30 years, they don't have one. Don't you think they should have like an entire army of enlightened guys to show off by now? Well, it's not. After 30 years, they should have had a few dozen generations of enlightened people. Even with only a quarter of them becoming teachers, they should have flooded the world by now. Mathematically speaking, don't you think? I'm not asking all this as a teacher myself, mind you. I'm just asking as a consumer or a consumer's advocate. Don't you think it's reasonable to ask to know a teacher's success rate? The proof is in the pudding, right? Didn't you ask them about the fruit of their teaching when you started with them? Well, that's not. Don't you think it's reasonable to ask? They're in the enlightenment business, aren't they? Or did I misunderstand you? Do they have something else? No, but if Consumer Reports magazine did a report on which spiritual organizations delivered as promised, don't you suppose the first statistic listed under each organization would be success ratio? Like, here are 100 randomly selected people who started with the organization 5 years ago, and here's where they are today. For instance, 31 have moved up in the organization, 27 have moved on, 39 are still with it but not deeply committed, and 3 have entered abiding non-dual awareness. Okay, 3%, that's a number you can compare. But this organization of yours would have a big fat goose egg, wouldn't they? And not just out of 100, but out of hundreds of thousands, millions probably. Am I wrong? You're making it sound, I know I am, Martin, and I know how they respond to this point. They say that everyone is coming up together, don't they? They say everyone's going to burst through at the same time when a certain critical mass has been reached. Isn't that it? Well, kind of, yeah, but you're making it sound. Why do you think that organization isn't up to its ass in enlightened people after 30 years? I would think they'd have storage problems by now. I would think the world would be beating a path to their doors by now. How much time do they need? It's not exactly, yes, Martin, it is exactly. That's the point. It couldn't be more exact. How is it possible that after 30 years, the only case of enlightenment is the one that started the whole thing? I know he's a big deal, Martin. I know the teachings. I know the breadth and scope of this guy. I agree. He's an elevated being, whatever that means. If I were in his presence, I would fall to my knees and touch his lotus-strewn feet. He's great. I know it. But we're not talking about someone else. We're talking about you. We're talking about you doing what? Would you call it breaking free from bondage? I don't see anyone in this guy's organization breaking free from bondage, Martin. Do you? I wait. Nothing. Can you offer an opinion as to why that might be? Martin is silent. He is clearly battling a lot of internal stuff. He looks at me to see what's coming next. Martin, I think you might consider the possibility that there's a serious flaw in that organization, something near the core. Do you think it's an unreasonable thing? Do you think it's unreasonable of me to say that? No reaction. Do you think it's at least reasonable to ask, to at least consider the possibility? He nods almost imperceptibly. My own awakening ran its course in less than 2 years, Martin, and that's without any living teacher to help me. I've never heard of the process taking longer than that. I really don't see how the process could take much longer than that. When I say this, I don't mean that it takes 2 years from the first spark of spiritual longing. I mean it takes 2 years after the point when the process of awakening actually begins. The primary epiphany, the first step. Let's capitalize that. The first step. I know that many people spend many years in meditation and spiritual practice without achieving full awakening. And I know that they think it's because they haven't crossed the finish line yet, but it's actually because they haven't crossed the starting line yet.
So that's a big point. Let's stop. He's going to talk to you over and over again in his theology, Jed. There's a first step that he talks about, and it's a demarcation of one thing to another, and it's unmistakable. Once you take it, you're going to get enlightened or die. And if you don't take it, you're just not there.
I think to borrow ahead from dream state or theory of everything. I don't remember which one. He uses the comparison of a black hole of that. There's the threshold that you cross.
It is dream state, yeah.
Dream state, yeah.
So dream state just is the fifth book he's ever read. Sixth. So there's the first three that we're going to concentrate on, and then he writes a number of other ones. Some of them are really good. All of them are really good. And one of them was called Dream State, and it's particularly good.
Event horizon.
The event horizon. So
yes.
he draws a map on it.
He does draw a little diagram. But the general idea being that when you're consuming this material, when you are thinking for yourself and doing true thinking, you are wandering near the edge, or you're wandering towards, if not near, that event horizon. And it's like a step. It's a breaking point. It's an ending of one thing and beginning of another. That is, it's like crossing the event horizon of a black hole. When you cross that line, the only place you're going is the center. Mm-hmm. There's no other place to go. That it is impossible. So once you cross that line, that's how he is comparing enlightenment.
And also
the first step.
Yeah.
Capitalized. The first step is crossing that event horizon.
And there's a process, and we'll talk about it in depth, of what happens after that first step is taken. A very specific process. And like you said, it can't last more than 2 years. The book is set up. We're gonna meet people who've taken the first step, and by the end, we're gonna watch someone take the first step. So it's all gonna be shown for us.
Yes, put on display.
Put on display. That was the word I wanted. And so, again, just come back to frames. We've got the initial piece where he's talking with Sarah. He's introducing these ideas. He shows the paradox. And now he's showing how inherently difficult it is to talk to Martin, because Martin's got all this stuck stuff. But at the same time, he's taking and adding layers to what it means to be enlightened. He's already introduced the term, it snuck past, abiding non-dual awareness. We'll get into that even more. And now he's introduced the first step, so that these layers are coming. They're just coming with you. So stick with it. It helps to have guides, I think. Otherwise, you do what we did, which we didn't have guides. We just read it and took it apart. And
reread it over and over and over again.
And again, let's state one of the things that we're doing this for is to take this. There's a line by Ahab in Moby Dick where he says to seek a little lower layer, to strike through the mask. And with the event horizon thing that Asher is talking about, if this is the line and this is us, this is us, right? And neither of us have crossed that line and taken the first step. And you're going to see that very few people in the world ever do. But there is something to be had in this zone, and we're going to talk about that. That's human adulthood. And it's aware that this exists, but you don't actually cross. He's also going to say, I'm going to cheat right here and tell you one more thing, is that crossing the line is not voluntary.
Yeah, you can't. That's why all the little quotes and poems he writes about, it's like, who is seeking enlightenment? Because it's not that if you really wanted it, you would just do the autolysis process. And if you got down to the bottom end of that and you didn't ever cross that threshold and you were just a human adult, congratulations.
And for new listeners, the autolysis process is a practice, and we'll get to that in a bit. So just out of context for people who haven't read it.
Yeah, but it's the main thing that'll come up.
We had an argument on our pause whether we were to talk to people or just talk to each other. And we are having a conversation, aren't we, with each other? But yeah. I'm a little more concerned with people who are watching than you are, I guess. Yeah. Not a good or bad thing, just I think I am, right?
Yeah, which is fine. That's a good balance.
We know where we're at. We have a place, right? We know where we're at.
Yeah, this chapter is like the questioning of Martin, everything that he just laid out is really, really powerful. Has always been really powerful to me, because it's like he does take an aggressive stance with the communication, the way he's interacting, but you can it feels, or like I'm following his path of thought where he's just like catching on to like, well, wouldn't it be this way? Isn't that the most, like, wouldn't naturally you ask that question? Like he just brings a sort of viciousness to his rationality.
But you know what's really cool about this? This is kind of a good thing that you brought up. But he's very deliberate about what he's trying to do. So what he sees in Martin, right, is this calcification. And at this time, he's going, okay, I need to break this, right? I need to break through his calcification. And he's being careful, right? He's being super careful. Yeah. He knows not to push too hard. He even says, if I take it one step too far, he's going back.
Yeah.
So I know what I'm doing, but I got to break through this bullshit in his head and in a way that gets to him. And I hear a lot of people tell me, I can't read Jed. He's such a dick. He's a fucking arrogant dick. And I'm like,
maybe I wonder if it's that. It's stuff like
exactly. That. Now, there's a counterpoint to that in Incorrect, where Megan comes to him as a woman and says, so what would you say to people trying to buy your book? And he's like, a dick to her, going, did I say I was trying to sell my book? Did you ever see me try to do it? Am I here for that? And she's all like, well, don't. And he's like, no, you said it. And then he writes in the paragraph, he goes, I cannot have this discussion devolve into them thinking I'm trying to sell them a book. That's not going to work. That will ruin everything. If anyone is to get anything out of this and they think I'm trying to sell it or I am trying to sell it, it's fucked. He said, so I made a point of being hard on her ass and confronting her. And finally he said, really, have I ever tried to sell this? And she kind of backs up and she goes, you're right. You haven't. I think you're an arrogant dick. I don't like you, but you're right. You've never done that. And I respect that. And he's all good. That's going to work for the rest of it. So here's another case where he's specifically being a dick for a reason.
I just don't interpret it as being a dick.
No, I don't either, though. I don't even think that.
All.
We have people we know, though, who think he's a dick, who've read the books. They have a hard time with this stuff.
I think they're just people that are caught up in that same knot.
Slice it.
You know?
Yeah.
I think anybody who's offended by that is relating way too much to Martin.
I don't know. I know people that don't like him. They think he's an arrogant prick. And here we are, your defenders, Jed. But I don't see it that way. I don't give a fuck about you, Jed.
If what he's saying, if he is where he's saying he is, then anybody who was in that same place should be able to speak with this level of clarity and certainty.
Yeah.
They should. So anybody doubting it or being upset with it because of that certainty is literally just not even understanding from the very beginning.
But he addresses that later on. Remember, he will. There's a point where he says, hey, if I'm wrong, I'm a lunatic. Like, and who wouldn't think I'm wrong? I think I'm right and everyone's wrong. I think,
Oh, no, I remember
that line?
Yeah,
and he says it. So he said, yeah, I get it. Okay, keep going.
I think we're okay. I really don't see how the process could take much longer than that. When I say this, I don't mean that it only takes 2 years from the first spark of spiritual longing. I mean it takes 2 years after the point when the process of awakening actually begins. I did read through this. Yeah, basically, this is where we left off. And I know that they think it's because they haven't crossed the finish line yet, but it's actually because they haven't crossed the starting line yet, the first step. I continue. It's a process, and it takes a certain amount of time. About the same as the gestation period for a baby elephant.
I just had a comment. I'm just responding. Keep reading. Dream state is sublime.
Awesome.
Yeah, I agree. Go ahead.
Martin is too polite to ask the obvious question. How many cases of enlightenment could I take credit for? The answer is an average of 1 or 2 a year since I began teaching. A dozen or so total. I can't really take credit for them, of course, but it was to me that the universe guided them at critical stages in their journeys. A couple of them are trying their hands at writing or speaking now, but most are just getting the hang of it. I can see 2 students in the pipeline at the moment who are going to make it, who've taken the first step. Once the first step is taken, the rest of the journey is sure to follow, unless you die or sustain a massive head wound. Martin? Yes. Would you agree that there might be a flaw in a teaching that doesn't produce any graduates? He hesitates, then nods. If so, it would be a pretty serious flaw, huh? He nods. I nod. Well, that's an interesting possibility. Maybe you could think about that for a bit and let me know what you come up with, okay? He nods. Martin? He nods. I already know the answer. This is for you, okay? He nods.
Yeah, so to take this personally, like, what are you getting out of this? Okay, let's do it. What's your biggest takeaway right now from the Martin chapter? I don't mean to put you on the spot. I'm just let's practice what we're preaching. What's your biggest takeaway this time? You read it a lot.
It was a little bit of what we talked about, how realizing that he's displaying some of the thinking that you should be doing for yourself.
Yeah.
He's displaying the aggressive rationality and clarity of actual logical thought that should be wielded against anything that this major that you're a part of for that long.
That should be wielded by you.
Yeah.
On you. Yeah, that's a big one. That's a good one. My biggest takeaway is, again, the reduction of terms, of simplification. Reduce it to, I like that, again. I'm good to be reminded of it. But I really like your biggest takeaway, right? That ruthless.
It's a ruthless rationality.
Where are we at, Good. Keep going.
Allegiance to any spiritual teaching or teacher, any outside authority, is the most treacherous beast in the jungle. The first thing we want to do when we begin our journey is find the companionship and validity that comes with an established group, and in doing so, we effectively end the journey before it begins. Martin is a perfect example of this, and perfectly typical. He set out 20 years ago in search of something higher, and now he's forced to confront the fact that all the effort and all the heart he's poured into his search for all those years has not carried him a single step forward. 20 years he spent digging himself into a hole, and now he has to climb out and actually begin the journey.
So that was me. All the years in the religion, I wasn't actually growing. Were you anything like Sarah? I guess you didn't have the big new age satsang kind of feel to break from, right?
No, but that would be the closest comparison.
Yeah. Okay. Go
on. 20 years he's been digging himself into a hole, and now he has to climb out and actually begin the journey, which he'll almost certainly not do. The power of our devotion to teachers and teaching is not a reflection of their value, but of ego's will to survive. It's ego, the false self, that exalts the guru and declares the teaching sacred. But nothing is exalted or sacred, only true or not true.
So you said a couple days ago or a couple weeks ago that you were here in part to slay Jed.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Your quest then would be, right, to what's true and what's not true. I don't give a fuck about Jed. I'm looking for truth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone familiar with the process of deprogramming someone who has been brainwashed by a cult will be able to appreciate what's really involved in breaking free of this kind of allegiance. But there's really only one cult, the cult of false self, and everyone is a fanatically devoted member. Awakening is the process of deprogramming. Enlightenment is the unprogrammed state. I explain all this in gentle terms to Martin, appealing to his mind, his reason, and watching his discomfort as heart and mind struggle against each other. In my preferred version of the Mahabharata, Krishna and Arjuna are discussing the war that is soon to begin. Arjuna asks if the war will take place on the battlefield or in his heart. I don't see a real difference, replies Krishna. I don't want Martin.
Right, I think-
That isn't information.
That's important.
Yeah.
The heart thing is going to come up particularly in Incorrect in the second book. He's really going to focus on it. And we're going to talk about why Arjuna fell. So there's a story, there's a book called the Bhagavad Gita. It's a Hindu scripture that I don't know super about.
I hadn't even heard of it until I read this. I mean, I was only 16. But.
Your grandpa, Francis, my father, loves the Bhagavad Gita. Just thinks it's amazing. So I'd heard about it a lot. And in it, there's a character named Arjuna, the greatest warrior in the world, and he's called to go to war by Krishna, the Lord. And he falls down, and he says, "No, I can't do it." And the reason Krishna shows up is to get him to stand up and fight the war. And he goes through a series of processes to get him to do that. And what Jed's going to say is you got to read that story as if you're Arjuna. God has called you to do something, and what would cause you to fall down? And the hint is it's going to be in your heart.
I don't want Martin to think I'm picking on his group and guru in particular. I don't see any reason to distinguish between one and another. There are any number of reasons why a spiritual organization might not be pumping out the enlightened in droves, not all of them readily visible. One very good reason is that unbeknownst even to themselves, the members of any spiritual organization may be quite satisfied to simply pursue enlightenment. Dedicating one's life to lofty spiritual ideals is every bit as life-defining and purpose-giving as the quest for heaven, or power, or money, or love. Just because there's a flashing neon sign above the door that says free enlightenment, the shortest and easiest way, the one true path, doesn't mean that what's going on inside is really about enlightenment or that the people who go in really want it. Quite the opposite. In nearly all cases, the enlightenment being bought and sold is not truth realization at all, but a state of consciousness so crazy-ass wonderful that you'd have to be an idiot not to want it. So insidiously wonderful, in fact, that its radiance has blinded untold millions of seekers to the fact that it doesn't exist. So maybe Martin's former organization is more into the talk than the walk, but I don't believe that they're perpetrating any sort of intentional fraud. I believe they're just as convinced as those they convince. In these cases, it's not likely to be anything sinister so much as an organization behaving like an organization that seeks to survive, adapt, and grow. Maybe the organism, oh, I understand. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I misspoke there. In these cases, it's not likely to be anything sinister so much as an organization behaving like an organism that seeks to survive, adapt, and grow. Maybe the organism seeks liberation for all sentient beings, or world peace, or the expansion of its own doctrine, or simply its own exaltation and empowerment. Maybe the enlightened guy at the top just wants to get laid, or maybe he lost control of the organization to the unenlightened guys below. Or maybe the enlightened guy at the top isn't enlightened at all, but something else. Something truly wonderful, perhaps, but not awake, not truth realized. Or hey, who knows? Maybe Martin's former group will reach their critical mass and they'll all burst into perpetual super happy consciousness together. Boy, will I have egg on my face when I'm knocking on their door asking if it's too late to sign up. The point is, there's really no point in trying to figure out all the possible reasons why seekers don't find. It's just another distraction, and there's no shortage of those. The point is to wake up, not to earn a PhD in waking up. Simply put, as Sarah surmised, waking up is job one. And then, if you still want to liberate all beings, or promote world peace, or save the whales, great. Lucky beings, lucky world, lucky whales. But the bottom line remains the same. You're either awake or you're not. And that is the end of chapter 3. Big thoughts. Damn.
That's one of my favorite poems.
Last Evan Self-Contained.
Yeah, I love when they come out.
We'll read that before the next chapter. Yeah, I don't know, it's hard because I'm definitely faced by, I don't know, it's really difficult because he is framing this within within the frame of enlightenment. You're awake or you're not. But he's not. I wish I could hear this chapter within the framing of a human adulthood discussion, because he said the point is to wake up, not to earn a PhD in waking up.
Well,
does that mean? But are you saying the point? Should we should just stop doing this and just strive to be enlightened?
Well, that's
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's a little unclear to me.
And in one area, it
makes sense.
We've not made any fucking progress at all. Right? By that standard.
By that standard, yeah.
Right? But then he says something in there. I didn't read this one. I don't know if I can find it. Something about the one true path doesn't mean that what goes inside is really about enlightenment or the people who get what they want. Bought and sold. The state of consciousness is so crazy, that's wonderful that you'd have to be an idiot not to want it. So is he talking about human adulthood, as we will enumerate later, or is he talking about a fake childish version of it that these gurus are passing off?
Yeah.
And I don't think he ever goes around and clarifies that.
No, and this book is really
not about
This is why I've commented on this for years, which is that really these books are quite frustrating to someone who is seeking human adulthood, because he didn't write them for that. That's a side effect that he talks about later. It's not like the main point of the fucking books, which I just am so frustrated with that.
Yeah.
All the time.
It begs the honest question that as we identify human adulthood as the integrated state, free, working in flow with the universe, still in the universe, still wearing the ego shell completely, but not identifying with it, wearing it super loosely, right?
Well,
that maybe we're reading the wrong books, should throw these away and find someone who knows what they're fucking talking about and isn't enlightened.
But is at that stage.
Yeah, I mean, he already suggests a person to do that with. You realize, you know the name, right?
So yeah.
No, Deepak Chopra. He says, if he had, at the risk of being politically correct, if he had one author to choose to be a human adult, he would do the collected works of Deepak Chopra.
Yes, I just recently reread that. He also says in one of the books.
We're reading the wrong fucking book.
Apparently, yeah. But he also says, if you really wanted to, like, it's probably in one of the later ones, maybe not even in these ones. It's like if someone really wanted to be on the path to human adulthood, and then I would just send him to go spend time with Sanea. Like he says that, so that's why I said Sanea.
That's in Dream State.
Dream State, yeah.
The fuck problem about that is we don't know who Sanea is, and we can't find her and go spend time with her.
No, and honestly, I would never do that to somebody. You know.
Oh, I would. I'd knock on her fucking door. I'd kick the door in and say, "Hey, well, take me as a student. Take me as a student."
Well,
that's sarcasm.
Yes, I would have the urge to do that.
I'd write her a letter and say, "Hey, are you taking students?" And we already have a Sanaya in our lives. You know that. You don't know that. I'll talk to you about that later.
Okay.
I don't want to say that live. Here's the deal.
Here's the deal, man.
Here's the deal, man. Why are we reading the Jed books? I mean, you really kind of bring up a great question. This is about the white hot, fucking narrow trip across the event horizon, burn it down. You die and get reborn as a totally different creature, unhindered by you wear yourself as a loose costume at all. And why are we reading this? Because we are, and we've continually read it. We keep coming back to it.
Yeah.
So why do we do that? Because we both don't want to be enlightened, do we? By his terminology.
No, by the way I would understand it, no.
By his understanding of truth realization, crossing the event horizon, and coming out 2 years of hell later. No, don't want to do it. Do want my cake, and I want to eat it too. I want to be a human adult. Crazy ass, so good that anyone would want it. Even though every time he talks about human adult, every piece of it sounds like it's the exact same path to enlightenment. Spiritual license, murdering your fears,
that's what
fucking facing Arjuna's heart. I mean, it's
when he's talking to Lisa in book 3. he says, she's saying like, well, so what? It's all bullshit. Now I have to destroy all this stuff. Like, and he goes, well, I think he says something about how the difference between you and I is that you get to choose what you destroy, because he's explaining that when he did it, he didn't have a choice. Everything, the order, the quota was everything, and that's what enlightenment is. And he was saying to Lisa, you are lucky in that you get to choose. But so I think that is a really important insight into what it is.
He never explains that.
Yeah, but he says something similar to what I just said, and that's. I think maybe the point, maybe the thing, the answer, the easiest answer to it is that the process is the same. That you just have to, it's not. You're not going to get the luck of the universe just saying, "Do it, bro."
So this crazy ass spiritual consciousness that they're selling like cake here is not human adult.
No, I don't even think that is.
Yeah,
No.
So he's talking about growing the motherfucker up, becoming as awake as you can, following it, burning it, shredding it, killing yourself, dying over and over again, particularly older people who have more to die to.
I think.
And doing it consciously as much as you can. And the day that's human adulthood, the day you're fucked and are going to enlightenment is when you cross the first step, and it's fuck you. I never talk to you again. I just stopped representing you. I am on this path. My fixed purpose on iron rails is fixed. I will not be swerved. I will not be swerved.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and
so it is valuable. You've just answered the question.
Yeah, the answer is it's the
every
same
piece of it
path.
It's the same path.
Same path. It's just instead of the universe saying, "Hey, you're doing this," you make the decision. I guess you.
So is the
do your own work.
Collected works of Deepak Chopra of any use though?
I have, from things that I've read, I can see the value in them. Yes, I see why Jed says they're value.
You know what's crazy about him? I'm friends with him on Facebook, I think. He's got 10 million friends, so it's not like I'm a friend. Follower, right? And he used to come on live once in a while. He does lives, and it would just show up on my feed, and I would watch it for like 30 minutes. And he's got kids and everything, and he's definitely on the Jed-ish side of enlightenment.
Sure.
He's kind of.
I think that the reason Jed says that Deepak Chopra is on the right track is because Deepak's on the same train of
2.2 million people like him. Sorry, I was fucking wrong.
Those are likes, not friends.
I know, son. I know that.
I know, but you said you were friends with him on Facebook.
I am friends with him.
I don't. It's not a big deal. Anyway, the reason I think it's important is because Deepak speaks to the concept of non-duality, of the idea that you're not just a thing in the universe. You are the universe. I believe that's the title of that book that he wrote. You are the universe.
Are you reading this, or are you being smart ass?
What do you mean?
Well, the video he just did, the last video, was called "The Universe Is Your Higher Self."
Oh no, I wasn't reading that.
But it's not your higher self. It's you, right?
Well, we shouldn't be watching his shit on.
Once you figure it out,
I don't want to do that. I want to do that.
We can do that. We can break any rule we want. We are unfettered. Don't constrain me. I will destroy the enclosing thing.
Fair, but I don't know what he's going to talk about.
He was going to talk for 46 seconds.
40 seconds?
Yeah, well, but he's not now. He's not now. It's gone.
You're
fucking shut up. Fucking shut up. It's gone now. It's gone.
Well, it was only 41 seconds. Oh, really? I guess we could. Well, it's gone now. Sorry. I don't know. I haven't consumed enough Deepak, but I did read his "You Are the Universe" book, and everything in that.
You read it?
Yes, and I agree. I felt like I didn't feel like all he did was use more relatable scientific terms to explain kind of what Jed explains in his books.
Well,
So I just
would you say he's
I agree.
enlightened or
no, I think that Deepak's just
a human
probably
adult?
just a real human adult. Yeah. And the difference is that he's just a popular one. You know, he just happens to be. I would be part of why my mission of reading this book is to define human adulthood and have a better understanding of it, because I want to be able to recognize it in the world if I see it.
No.
Okay, well, it looks like your attention is now on Facebook, so we should probably end the episode.
Shush. I saw my face on Facebook. That's what happened there. Okay. We found out that this is useful. Anyone reading these is going to have these same questions coming up, right? Because when you read it, it takes you. You're like, it's so powerful. But then it's really smart to stop and go, why am I reading this? And it does apply to human adulthood. I mean, Jed, if you're listening, and I know you are, you could just type a comment right in here and let us know. You know, like make a fake call sign there. But come in and because that's a great question. I don't know that he's ever really addressed that.
Which question?
Well, that this human adulthood is what you said that he said to Lisa. It's everything that enlightenment is, but it's by choice and it doesn't burn everything.
Yeah.
It'll burn a lot, but it won't burn everything.
And honestly, we should really we're breaking the continuity of the story and talking so fucking much about human adulthood before he doesn't even talk about it.
It's not terrible. It's not even in this book.
It's not even in this book.
No.
So we should stop talking about it.
It's a good point. But you were right. When you read that piece where he's all like, you're either awake or you're not. Like, it's either one or the other. You're either a benighted soul of a stupid dullard sap lackwit, or you're awake. And there isn't true. He is going to talk about another state in between.
The point is to wake up, not to earn a PhD in waking up.
Yeah.
And to a degree, I think both of us are guilty of having, well, not actually, but, you know, putting ourselves on like a more of an education path for trying, but it's, and maybe this is a self-lie, but it's with the idea of wanting to understand more about the fucking
right. Our idea, what you're saying is there's and this is why you're here, right? At some point, you got into the PhD level of learning, and that became a distraction to actually waking the fuck up.
Yes.
And you're back here to wake the fuck up as a human adult.
Yeah.
That's why you're fucking here. No more distractions. You were a human child. You're going to human adulthood. That's where you're fucking headed. And you're like a mid-level human child who's headed there. You've got some good parts. You're way more awake than a lot of people and kids of your age, right? I'm way more awake.
Measure it, probably.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean we're happy there. We want to go further.
Yeah.
Further. Yeah, we want to wake the fuck up and know, and it's out of our hands whether we cross the first step or not. Takes that responsibility off of me. I could want that as much as I want. It's not my choice, so fuck it. Don't worry about it. I'm going to drive towards this like a motherfucking Mack truck going 200 miles an hour down a hill with no brakes. Fucking yeah. Fucking A. We're going for it. Yeah. We're going to wake up. That's the direction we're headed.
Yeah. Our end goal is to be human adults and be able to comment on this material from a experienced perspective, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yep. I think this clarified where we're headed.
Yeah, it actually helped.
Boom. Yeah. This is a good discussion. You brought up a great question at the end of that. Thank you, Martin, out there in the world, Mr. Football Player for Northwestern. You probably didn't play for Northwestern. You probably played for Notre Dame.
I think worrying about that stuff is
not. We already agreed not to worry about it.
Of distraction. I do it too, though. Like my subconscious asks all these questions. Yeah.
Well, we did it like How do you pronounce her name?
Sunea.
Sunea. Sunea is a person of interest to me now. If I could learn something from her. But I got the books, and I'm going to do my own fucking thinking. Right? Again, you can see the pull to a teacher who would tell you how to do it.
Yeah, it's a natural. There's a natural inclination to go for that for some reason. It feels like the thing to do.
You know what's funny though? It's a parental thing. It's a go to school thing. It's you need questions. You go to Google thing.
Yeah.
Right? But here's the thing: having a teacher that you're putting on a pedestal, like Martin did here, right?
Yeah.
That's what he's pointing at. That's no good. That's gonna fuck you. You're gonna stop progressing. Having a point where you don't know the answer, you're like, I'm stuck. And someone goes, oh, this is the key to that door. That's helpful.
Fuck
yeah, that's helpful.
If maybe to put it into spiritual terms, if you can look at what the finger is pointing at and not at the finger,
yeah,
then you will get what you need out of it. But this person asked, guys, do you have theory of everything with you? Do you have a copy with you?
Yes, I do.
We do?
Yes, I do. I got them all. You think I'm going to show up this fucking thing without my books?
There's a crazy typo at the back.
Oh.
Don't
I
say
opened my
you did
fucking
it.
mouth.
Open your mouth and said, of course I do.
Where is it? Here's Dream State. Why is it not here? I'm
We're
fucking
doing like
doing
next
this
to your
goddamn
bed.
course, and I don't have my fucking
Well,
books.
this is what we deal with when we're doing it live.
Well, that's cool. Everyone knows we're real people, at least.
Who lose their shit.
We're not paid fucking actors. Hey, bro, I'm trying to find it. There's a crazy typo at the back. Hey, I do have it. I'll show you where it is.
Oh, wait, do you have the...
I have it on Kindle.
Okay.
Which maybe I only have it on Kindle.
Yeah, actually.
Actually, yeah.
And I wonder if the typo's still going to be there.
Yeah, maybe they fixed it. Sirius 96. Hello, it's nice to meet you. Glad you're watching.
Give me some details. What are we looking for?
Theory of everything. Problem here is I have 10 million books. I'll just search.
It's
Theory of everything. There it is. This is a fantastic book, by the way. Do you like this one?
Yeah, I think that honestly, I think it's a really important, logical. It makes sense, and I'm glad that he took the questions there, because it really is valid. The idea that
I found it.
Basically, if he's telling the truth in the, if he actually is where he says he is in the Enlightenment Trilogy, then he would have a theory of everything.
Yeah.
If he actually is where he says he is. So then he follows that through and actually does lay it all out. And it's really wonderful. I think my favorite thing in Theory of Everything is unless it's Dream State. Damn it.
Which one?
The the creation myth.
Oh, fuck. That's Dream State.
That's Dream State.
Yeah, that's...
Dream State is wonderful.
Dream State is wonderful. I love this. Yeah, this is a good one.
So there's a typo at the back.
Where? He's trying to find it. I don't think it's on the Kindle version.
Well, then...
Shit, dude.
Hey, how about this? When we come back next Thursday?
Next Thursday? We'll have a copy.
But...
Yeah, shit. I've only got the Kindle version. Okay.
All right, well, thanks for paying attention, Sirius.
Hey, Sirius, it's good to have you here.
Really
and we do love Theory of Everything, and particularly Dream State.
We'll have physical copies with us next time.
Yeah, we'll get our shit together. I have a Jed bookshelf, and it's just not sitting there. So,
well, okay, this was big thoughts and then discussion afterward, and I really like this one. We will be back. We went through 2 different chapters in this session.
Yeah.
So honestly, we're going through them faster than I thought, but I think that it'll just be more sporadic when we stop to pay more attention.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to next week. This has been awesome. I'm Asher, and yeah, Asher Dream State is my favorite.
I think sometimes Dream State's my favorite.
It might be my favorite as well.
Oh.
That creation myth is just
yeah, and so much good shit. Like, and by the way, just so if you're sticking with this and you're actually reading along in the new stuff, don't get distracted. You know, Dream State's great. We're saying how great it is, and it's way out there. This shit is amazing. Incorrect is amazing. Warfare is amazing.
They're all amazing.
They're all amazing. So don't think, oh, fuck this, I'll go start with Dream State, because that would be a mistake, right? Serious? I mean, that would be a fucking mistake to start with Dream State.
If you know, it would be a mistake in the framing of wanting to really have a full understanding of the actual material.
Yeah.
You know, contextually, it makes more sense to go through the first one. That's what we'll get to it.
Yeah.
Just this series in our intentions is the Enlightenment Trilogy.
Yeah. Hey man, I know Sirius, it is way late for you, so we're gonna let you get some sleep. Thanks for joining us. Add in more comments if you got any requests, questions, all that. We're really glad to have you here, and we will see you next Thursday.
You gotta say it. I'm Jason.
I'm Jason.
I'm Asher, and we will see you next week.
And we got a little bit of music.
With
Yep.
Seeker, Aspirant, Victim.
Jed Mckenna. Okay, everybody, we will see you.
You did.
I didn't do that right. I can't do